Just before this session starts, I would very much like to say a huge thank you to the sponsors, which are JBT, Cinepower, Aviaco GSE, Textron, and DBD Communications. Ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, here we are again, continuing with the theme of GSE and RAMP. And our two guests today are both background mechanical engineers. So I'm expecting a lot of technical terms that I might struggle with, gents. So looking forward to those challenges. First and foremost, we've got Stephen Savage, who's Senior Analyst Ground Operations with IATA, based in Montreal. Nice to have you on board, Stephen.
Thanks, Chris. Welcome. Nice to be here.
Appreciate it. And then we've got Bibin Samuel, who's the Group GSE Manager, National Aviation Services, commonly known to us all as NAS, and he's based in Kuwait. Bibin, lovely to have you on board.
Thank you, Chris, and nice to be here.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. Now, gents, just to start us off, what I'd like each of you to do, if you wouldn't mind, is to just give us a brief introduction of how you came to be in the positions you're in and what your primary responsibilities and accountabilities are. Just very quickly, nicely, so people know who it is that's talking to them. So if we start with you, Bibin.
Well, I'm the Group GSE Manager as of now. I started my career in the automobile industry in early 2000s and joined the GSE field in the year of 2008. I started with taking over the workshop of Kuwait, GSE maintenance activities of Kuwait, and from there took over and we started building up stations, mostly in Africa, Afghanistan, and currently we handle around 9 to 10 airports in Africa, Afghanistan, and Kuwait all together. I'm in charge of the entire GSE maintenance activities on all the stations.
Okay, right. I mean, that's quite a challenge, isn't it? All those different locations as well, huh?
True.
Yeah, no, good. All right, thank you for that, Bibin. And Stephen?
All right. In terms of aviation industry, I started with South African Airways Cargo back in 1997, and I was dealing with the operational vehicle fleet. That's all the forklifts and things inside the SAA Cargo's facilities. I was dealing with facilities management as well for all of South African Airways facilities in South Africa, and also ULDs. Then I came to IATA in 2008, primarily on ULDs, and then switched over to ground operations. And since ground operations is responsible for the airport handling manual, I got involved in the GSE aspects of the airport handling manual for IATA, running the group of people that look after Chapter 9 and 10 of the airport handling manual. For quite a number of years now. I can't remember how long. And yeah, I mean, I have other responsibilities as well, but not related to GSE.
Okay, right, guys. So for those that might not be 100% familiar, Chapter 9 and 10. So Chapter 9, the airport handling ground support equipment specifications, and Chapter 10, the environmental specifications for ground handling operations. So we're going to be focusing a lot on Chapter 9 during this session, but we will touch on Chapter 10 because obviously it's a topical issue and it's one that's going to capture the minds and the hearts and the focus of so many now moving forward. So firstly, gents, if it's okay to make a statement on behalf of us all, irrespective of any crisis or any disruption or business disruption, safety is the mantra for everybody and anybody working on an airport environment, the aerodrome, and especially on the ramp. So I know that that's a given for both of you with your backgrounds and the organizations that you work for. Now, with that in mind, and people would be asking questions, which they have done, with the practical sizing that takes place and is taking place at the moment, and people being furloughed and reductions, they'd be asking now, how can you ensure that people know what to do when they come back or are competent when they come back, or are not distracted when they come back. So if it's okay, Bibin, I'd like to start with you, especially as you're aware of the SMS areas and human factor criteria. So how has your organisation ensured that everything is running the way it would do, should do, and must do in such challenging times? Bibin? Can you hear, Bibin?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yep,
did you get that?
There was a slight internet disturbance in between. Sorry for that. But yeah. Well, it is quite tough during the post-COVID or during the current situation. But as a handling agent, we have taken all precautionary measures in terms of disinfection, GSE activities. Our entire GSE fleet has a scheduled plan as per the IATA regulations. It's all the equipments are disinfected, all the baggages are disinfected before it comes in, and so we go through all the protocols to ensure the safety of the passengers during the current situation. Yeah.
Okay, and you're still an advocate and a promoter of the just culture and reporting any incidences openly and in a forthright fashion. Yeah.
True. We do have a system in place. Like we do have a very transparent system, which is called a process maker. Yeah. And every single incident goes through the process maker. It goes to the safety, the quality. It gets distributed across team members, and the CEO is the final authority for it. So he gets to know each and everything, and it's pretty transparent. And any auditor or QHSE is free to visit the thing. So it's pretty open, and it's pretty transparent as well. Yeah.
Okay, and it's the same system that you roll out in all of your locations?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, lovely. Yeah. Now, Steve, as the senior analyst, obviously it's so important to get as much data as possible. And on an individual note, I'm happy to say that most organizations, they tell their customers what they're measuring, but they're not as free with the data when it comes to the community itself. So are you finding a similar trend? And
well,
what IATA doing with regards to that particular element of awareness and sharing that awareness?
Well, we have had some difficulty getting data from any sources at the moment this people are focused more on the day-to-day of business of survival in this time. Previously, we had the ground damage database, which is being replaced with a new system, which would allow people to input data to a system which would allow them to compare their situation with the industry overall. From my colleague who's running that program, I believe they are having some success with getting companies to join the new system, but it's a slow process at the moment. Of course, we do some surveys to find out at the moment, to get a snapshot of what's going on, but sometimes responses are limited or very few, so it's difficult at this point to build a trend on what's actually going on. On the GSE side of things, just to sort of back up Bibin a bit, we very quickly, when they went into shutdown and so on, we built up a whole thing on with the GSE group that we have available to us. We built up a GSE storage and GSE return to service guidelines, which were, in fact, they're still available on our website. And these were also incorporated into general guidelines to help the industry. So from ground operations perspective, we produced quite a lot in the way of information on A, the shutdown, B, what to do while under storage, and then C, what to look for when restarting things, as well as some strategies on what to do with your GSE fleet, whether you park it or you exercise equipment regularly, or you keep some equipment in operation while other stuff is in long-term storage. So it's just the trouble is I don't think anybody thought it was going to be quite as long-term as it's turning out to be. So we produced quite a bit of guidelines there. We also produced a whole lot of new training material which deals with the difficulties in maintaining staff currency and staff training levels under the current circumstances in the ground operations side of things, at any rate. So there's guidance material there available.
Good. Yeah, I've looked at it, and it's very, very useful. Now, Bibin, with that in mind, what have been the biggest challenges that you've faced now during the crisis, and bearing in mind that obviously we're all going into a second wave, some more severe than others, but it's going to have a major impact again on reducing capacities and then obviously reducing the need for equipment. So what have been the biggest challenges you've faced during the first wave?
Well, in terms of GSE, the biggest issue was of course, the reduction in operation, and of course, we have a huge capex investment done. So that's on a budgetary level, on a financial level, it's a big hit. At the same time, we have so much of constraints and challenges because for example, an apron bus with the current situation, we use almost 6 times the number of buses we use normally because of the social distancing and stuff. So in certain areas, we need a lot of equipment extra. In addition, for example, in Kuwait, we need around 11 apron buses to deboard an aircraft. So disembarking passengers is a big issue. Second biggest constraint is going through all the medical facilities. You end up in long queues. You need to facilitate for the passengers, all the system in place. So we do have a lot of constraints when it comes to the facilities available right now to cope up with the current situation. In terms of GSE, again, when it comes to certain areas like conveyor belts and usage of other equipment, well, there is a huge number of reduction in terms of, so it is affecting us big time with the kind of investments we have done over the years, because we are at less than 25% of the operations expected for the year.
Yeah. And you're expecting it to get a lot worse over the next 4 or 5 months?
True. Well, we were very positive, or we were looking at the last quarter of the year to be a bit better, but we don't see anything positive as of now, because right now we are looking at a second wave, and it makes it even more difficult, and we don't think anything is going to happen the first quarter of next year as well. So it's getting really bad. We do have a lot of orders in place, and we need to hold the orders.
Yeah.
We are just waiting for business to start to see where it goes.
Yeah, no, exactly. And with regards to the preventive maintenance program, and also mothballing some of the equipment, are you looking at the risks and the risk assessment issues and what has to be done there, and what do you do with the excess equipment?
Yeah, well, this needs to be considering the 2 different levels. So regarding the preventive maintenance, yes, due to the lesser operation hours, we have lesser preventive maintenance, but we do have to maintain certain protocols from the AHM or IATA regulated protocols. So we go through this monthly inspections to ensure all the serviceability of all units. We do have certain equipments which are barely used as well. So we do have a lot of electrical related, battery related issues as well.
Yeah.
So all these are new things which we never used to face earlier. To give you an example, a bus which used to be used around 16 to 17 hours a day is used 2 to 2.5 hours a day. So it's really affecting the operation big time. But again, coming back to the total in terms of spares, in terms of the maintenance activities, yes, the maintenance activities is down to around 50 to 60%, and this is how it's going.
Okay, yeah. Now, can I ask you something, Steve? From an analytical perspective, if there's now so much equipment not being used by multiple GHAs, do you think there's an argument there or an option whereby there could be a pooling system as people start to look at what's going to happen in the first quarter of next year and thereafter, so that it helps them with their capital investment?
I think there's a possibility, yes. Obviously, there's questions of ownership and questions of liability. If people from one company are using equipment of another company, which would have to be sorted out on a sort of station by station basis. I certainly think that it's a possibility. Whether people are going to do that or not, I'm not sure. But I think it's certainly something that people could actually look into using, particularly if, like Bibin suggests, they're needing to use a lot more airport buses than they used to. It would make sense to try and borrow from other people's fleets to at least meet the demand for airport buses overall for an airport. Obviously, as traffic ramps up and more buses are going to be needed, I don't know quite what we do then, but certainly as a short-term measure, it might be worth looking at. Definitely is worth looking into doing something like that.
Yeah. Okay. And Bibin, do you think that there's some opportunity there to pool with other organisations?
Oh yeah. If other than the legal bindings, I think there are. I mean, let's give an example again. In Kuwait, we have almost 300 motorized equipments, and we have another handling agent also, Kuwait Airways, who was a bigger number of fleet than us, and together, I mean, I don't think we use more than 20% of the current GSE. So yes, there is a very good way to move forward by pulling the equipments together. Again, another reason for that is like when we, like the example which we said, the apron buses, we do have a shortage when it comes to a couple of flights at the same time, and nobody has. I mean, in a bus which used to carry 80 to 100 passengers can take only 13 to 14 passengers now. So it would be ideal to have a pooling system where things should be much more better, optimize resources and use for the operation.
Okay, Steve, can I ask you something? And both of you have got an engineering background and very logical minds. I'm just thinking to myself now, you get onto an airplane and you're sitting close to someone, and then why is it so restricted on the co-bus, on the buses, with the transfer from the terminal to the aircraft?
Funnily enough, I was thinking exactly that. The only thing I can suggest probably is because there's people are standing. You can't control the direction in which they're facing, so they could be facing one another, which is obviously an issue. And also, I don't think that the airflow within the bus cabin or the bus passenger compartment of the bus is as controlled as it is on an aircraft. I mean, the aircraft, I'm told that, and I've no reason to disbelieve it, but the airflow is basically down, so it's to the floor, so it's flowing down past you. It's not transmitting the air between passengers, whereas in an airport bus, I don't think it's as controlled as it is on an aircraft by a long chalk, probably.
Yeah, no, the HEPA system in the aircraft is excellent. But even though, Bibin, I mean, I'm sure everybody's wearing masks when they're on the buses, yeah?
Oh yeah. It's a mandatory requirement. And again, as Steve said, this is what I understand as well. It seems that in the aircraft you don't have a horizontal movement of the air. It's a vertical movement. This is what we understand. So plus you don't have a direct face-to-face passenger. So this is one of the reasons why aircrafts are kind of a bit safe plus there is an airflow system in the aircraft where the air is expelled out, whereas in an apron bus, especially in countries like Kuwait, where we have air conditioned system, and we cannot have the ventilation system on at all. Our temperatures soar up to 50 to 55 degrees during summer.
Wow.
So we do not have a choice, and the airflow, if air is circulated inside the bus all through the complete way of the transport till the doors are open when it reaches the bridge or the gate.
Okay, clear. Thanks for that. Now, as far as telematics and new technology, what's recommended, Steve, and where is it leading? Because obviously, technology and digitization and all sorts of support in especially on the cargo side, but generally in aviation is not as advanced as it is in other industries. So what's the guidelines, or what's the hot tips with regards to telematics and new technology that people should be aware of?
Well, that's a very wide range of topic. In terms of GSE, I think, and Bibin, I look to you for support on that. But in terms of just looking at your GSE fleet, I think it's much the same as any other vehicle fleet, and there's a large number of packages that allow you to control your vehicle fleet, some more sophisticated than others, but these are programs which allow you to know where each and every piece of your equipment is, what it's doing. Is the engine on? Is it off? Is it idling? Is it working? And whether it's coming up for a service or it's running out of fuel, and all of that type of thing. And that's been around for quite a while, and I think pretty much anybody who's operating GSE is doing that. I think the next stage is combining that into the overall airport management, and starting then to optimize your fleet, starting to make sure that you've got the right equipment at the right stand for the right aircraft type, so that you're able to provide your service as speedily and as accurately as possible. So it's not a question of, it's a 777, so I need this type of high loader and not that type of high loader, and have to swap things over. Also, that the equipment is there when the aircraft is on stand. So what we got to do now is the integration of these systems. So you've got your GSE fleet manager, he knows where all of his equipment is, but the people who are arranging operations on the ramp don't know where the stuff is. And then what we've got to do further than that is start getting into the timestamps, turnarounds and things. So you can say, yeah, the equipment was there. Yes, it was the right equipment. And it started its service then, it ended its service then, so you can be sure that your billing is correct, and that you can then analyze any delays more accurately, rather than based on what people say was going on. So I think that's kind of the next step, is integrating these telematics into the overall system of running your whole turnaround on the ramp. And we're starting to take a look into timestamps turnaround. We've developed, and it will be coming out in the, forgive me if this is like advertising, but we've come up with the systems for we have come up with some codes for mobile GSE, which we would like to put out there as a means of communicating between different systems. So you have FTK is a aircraft fuel tanker, for example. Not to say that all the systems have to adopt that, but if you're then trying to integrate timestamps turnaround system with a GSE fleet management system, that you can use that as a translator.
Okay, very good. And Bibin, same thing. So obviously the event tracking is key. and telematics, are they coming into your world more and more?
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially if you all have attended the latest airport exhibition, which was held in Munich, you would see that there are a lot of developments in telematics. Actually,
Yeah.
This is one of the growing things. And we ourselves, we do have access control systems. We do have geofencing systems in place. As Steve said, right? Like, you know, we are We are in the process of integrating billing system. So we do have informatics going from a GPU when the flap is open, and you know, when it's inside the geofencing and your switch is on, it starts metering. So you don't have to really worry about the exact time. Everything gets in the system.
Yeah.
And we have the tracking of the entire units. We know where our units are based on the tracking system. In addition, we do have the fuel levels, all the other parameters which comes into the system. Speed alerts in terms of we can design to whatever speed decide based on the airport regulation. So we do have a system in place, and we have slowly started putting more efforts into installing it to every unit. And the latest development is that they have started incorporating something similar to the non-motorized GSE, which is a great innovative idea. It works on geofencing. It's a pretty new concept, I believe. So that's something which is, because almost all the airports do have a lot of non-motorized GSE.
Yeah.
So, and tracking it is one of the most difficult part. So now this is coming to the picture where we would be able to track, although we haven't bought the system, we are into discussions on this, and we would be able to track each and every single dolly and trolley of ours in terms of location and usage, etc. So, well, yeah, this is something which is really into the new era. Yeah.
Okay, good. And something you touched on earlier, Stephen, was to do with ULDs. And I'm sure now with, you know, storage of GSE and now storage of pallets and containers, it's also causing a congestion issue.
And storage of aircraft too. Sorry, yes, Chris?
Yeah, no, sorry. What did you say? You said
I said, and storage of aircraft too.
Exactly. But it's not going to get easier now over the next 4 to 6 months. So are you happy that airports are doing enough, or could they do more? Could they help out quite a bit with regards to their own ecosystem?
Not being based at an airport, I can't really judge that. I think I think part of the problem has been nobody anticipated this would be as long as it is. So when people started storing equipment, be it ULDs, be it GSE, even aircraft, I think they were saying, well, okay, this is going to be a couple of months. And so they went along with that. And so you're prepared to accept certain things, certain compromises, if it's only going to be for a couple of months. And then it turns out to be longer than that, and then you have to go back and reassess how you're doing the storage and where you're doing it, and whether you've actually got the right storage conditions. I mean, basically, we shut down in the northern hemisphere spring. So we were going into summer, so we weren't overly worried about things like ice and snow and that type of thing. While we were storing stuff. Now we're heading into the fall, it's getting colder, we're going into a second wave.
Exactly.
And the question is now, is what we did, which was basically just parking stuff out in the open during the summer, is that now going to be adequate for winter? What things do I need to go and do to the equipment to deal with storing it over during a really cold period? I mean, do I need to go and drain all the dev tanks and so on, because that stuff's going to freeze in the not too distant future if we don't start using it. What I honestly can't comment on how the airports are handling this. I think everybody is really pushed, for my interpretation is everybody's really pushed to try and find space to adequately store these things. I think people have been reluctant to move stuff off site because it then becomes less accessible, less easy to return to service. but I think this is something where people are going to have to start thinking about maybe moving. If you want to start storing stuff undercover, you're going to have a shortage of undercover storage space at the airport because you still got aircraft on the ground, and you'd like to put those in the hangars rather. So you might have to start thinking about moving stuff off-site, and that's going to be incredibly expensive because a lot of the equipment isn't suitable for use on the road.
Exactly. And Bibin, you're expecting problems with that particular area?
Oh yeah. As Steve said, it's a big challenge. We need to work on it. We do have stations like Afghanistan where temperature goes really low.
Yeah.
And we've already started looking into the possibilities of how we're going to store the equipment. It is a challenge, and it's coming pretty fast. So we never thought that we'll reach up to that level. So let's see. Hopefully, we would be finding a solution. So yeah.
Okay, good. Now, there's been a lot of talk and a lot of debate, and sometimes it's quite a surprise to see people who are already in the industry commenting about the industry, and especially to do with environment. So, they're talking about ghost flights and low capacity flights still operating to maintain services, etc. But on the ground, for you both, obviously Chapter 10, the environmental specifications, how far in do you think that particular direction is within the ground handling community and the airports themselves?
What we've done, we've taken a good look at the within the GSE group. We've been taking a look at the electric GSE as an up and coming trend, and we've even produced guidelines for electric GSE in the airport handling manual, funnily enough under Chapter 9 rather than Chapter 10. And this has been in publication now for 1 year. And it looks, at this point, it's just guidelines. It's things to look out for, things to consider when going for electric GSE. One of the things that we brought up there is the availability of electricity for powering an electric GSE fleet. It was quite surprising to talk to people from one or two countries where you wouldn't have expected it to be a problem, and they're saying, well, yes, we would like to move to electric GSE, but our electricity service provider cannot actually provide us enough power to do this. And so it's incumbent on an airport to talk to its stakeholders like the ground service providers and the airlines that are using GSE to say, okay, fine, we want to move to electric GSE. How do we go about it? What steps do we need to do? And I think the first step is to assess how much electricity is going to be required for doing all of the charging of batteries and so on, and then going and saying to the electricity supply company and saying, well, if we suddenly have this extra demand, are you able to meet it? And then work according to what the answer is to that one. The other one, of course, is to provide sufficient charging stations and also to do a thorough risk analysis of the chances of extended power failures and what you do as backup power when you have extended power failures.
Yeah, no, the risk assessment now is becoming a way of life, and the more people focus on it early enough, obviously the better it's going to be. Now, Bibin, same for yourself. Are you addressing Chapter 10 items and issues and opportunities?
Just to add on to what Steve was telling, one of the challenges we face in bringing in battery operated equipment is like extreme weather conditions, like Kuwait. For example, our summer hits 55 to 56 degrees Celsius. So it is a testing time for us. We do purchase a lot of battery equipment, and we do have a lot of battery equipment in the last couple of years. But we're all waiting and watching and tracking these equipments because it is a big we're doing an experiment actually. Honestly speaking, none of us are sure about the life of the batteries in terms of or durability of the battery in this extreme weather conditions.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of risk, and we need to mitigate the risk as well. So we do have additional fire extinguishing systems in place, and automated fire extinguishing system in our pushback. So we're trying to put in all this, and we're cooperating. I mean, we are in discussion with the leading manufacturers of let's say pushback and all, where we need to make sure that it is sustainable even in our extreme weather conditions.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Now, just as an off the cuff question to you both, and Steve, you from the analytical side, and Bibin, you from the practical side. If I was to ask people working on the ramp if they knew about environmental exercises that they should be aware of to reduce the effects, so like idling engines, like taking equipment from the furthest point instead of the nearest point to the service, etc. How well prepared do you think they'd be, or how well do you think they'd understand why these little activities are so important in the bigger picture? What would your feedback? What do you think the situation would be if it was done as a neutral survey?
I think that it would depend very much on the culture of the country itself as to how aware people are about the environment. I think the tendency would be for people to think that, the airport is such a noisy place and it's got so much emissions from aircraft engines and so on, that they would probably tend to think that using GSE is such a minor part of all of that it wouldn't really make very much difference. I mentioned when we started that we were starting to look into CO2 emissions and noise emissions from GSE, and there is a significant difference between fossil fuel powered GSE and electric GSE, both in terms of CO2 as well as noise emissions, and it does make a difference. Is it appreciable? Is it going to be noticed by the people on the ramp? Well, probably not so much, but as the fleet grows, I think they will probably find that it does make a bit of a difference. So I think that people would become aware of it as we go for that, but I think that the culture of the community, the culture of the country, very much dictates whether people see this as something that impacts them at work on the ramp or not. It would depend on the country.
Okay, and Bibin, I'm looking more now to see whether people are made aware, or the education of awareness. Is one of understanding what carbon neutral is and what carbon negative is, and are there companies doing anything on the carbon negative side, replanting trees or, putting back into the earth, whatever it takes. Are people actually focusing on things like that now?
Yeah, generally, yes, in an awareness training and stuff like that, it is being done. But again, Steve rightly said it. It depends on the community. It depends on the culture of the country. It also is based on the regulations of the country. So, unfortunately, in few countries where we work, I mean, the regulation doesn't call for it, and people take it very light. So, a general awareness is always given. Now we're becoming more and more comprehensive on these stuff. We have started becoming more green. More electrical equipments in place, and lesser carbon emissions and stuff like that. But when you come back and ask a general worker inside the apron, I'm not sure unless they are given a clear picture of what they're doing and what is getting affected and how they'll get affected, and what would be the difference in terms of once the carbon emission goes down and stuff like that. So it's more kind of self-responsibility from the people, more to do with the regulatory bodies and the culture should change. It's going to take some time, but I think yes, people are much more aware than the previous years, and as the years go on, they would realize the need for it.
Yeah, no, I think we all need to
Chris,
do something about it. And as we're moving from hygiene awareness, that's the next step. Steve?
Chris, I was just going to say, I think what really brings the message home, though, is when a company starts moving to away from fossil fueled vehicles to electric vehicles, and they start doing the sums, because it's not that easy a calculation to say we have to move to electric GSE and because it's going to save us money. Yeah. Moving to electric GSE means a culture shift in terms of how you do your maintenance, what maintenance you do, etc. It also deals with the whole aspect of batteries and battery chargers, and it's not a cut and dried or easy decision to make. So I think for the first time, people are taking a look at electric versus fossil fuel, and they're trying to weigh it up very dispassionately, and they're saying, okay, fine, a diesel belt loader is going to cost this amount to buy, I'm going to spend that amount of it on fuel, and so on. An electric powered one is going to cost that much, the battery is going to be that much, I'm going to be spending so much on charging it on electricity, and so actually the figures are coming home, and I think it comes out in the end more towards the electric side, but it's making management and so on actually assess this properly, and that would get passed on to the people purely because they're now using electric instead of diesel, and then they probably will start feeling better about electric vehicles, more confident about it, and it might even, you never know, get into their personal transport and so on as well eventually, and change the culture that way around, sort of reverse from saying the community culture is in favor of it, so we'll move to it. Now we're saying, okay, fine, I've had practice using electric vehicles at work, and I'm quite happy to have an electric car to use, assuming you can afford it. But you know, it would be quite interesting. But I think that it's a matter of being people are now properly assessing the differences.
No, I hear you. But the sooner we get global collaboration, compliance, and control over these issues, the better. Now, gents, as we come to the end of the podcast, what I like to do is I like to ask the participants, what 3 things would they be committed to do from a collaboration perspective in the positions that you're in? And what 3 things would you like to see from the supply chain, the community, that would help you doing what you're responsible for? So, starting with you, Bibin, what 3 things would you be happy to commit to in your position and representing NAS that would help the supply chain and the community?
Well, when it comes to GSE perspective, in terms of going green, for sure makes a big difference, and we do have options like in Africa. We do a lot of innovative products. We bring into a lot of innovative products which can help the common man and people around and the staffs around. Yeah, that's what we do in terms of going ahead. Like,
okay, anything else?
Yeah,
pooling, helping out, reducing the amount of equipment that's being used.
Yeah, of course. This is something which we discussed. That's why I didn't get back. Yes, yeah. Pooling of equipment is something which we need to work on. We are working on, and we hope that it's going to work, which is going to help either parties in terms of operations as well as optimizing the resources. Yeah, for sure.
All right, lovely. And Stephen, from your perspective?
Well, what we want to do is do more to sort of upgrade or to advance GSE from where it has been traditionally, which is pieces of equipment that have been around for 20, 25, even 30 years without any significant changes. I think that is now changed. We are getting into more purpose-built equipment, and it is more optimized for its for the function it's supposed to perform. So at the moment, we've got proximity sensing and warning systems into the airport handling manual, so that we took a dispassionate look at this and said, well, how do we stop ground damage to aircraft from ground support equipment? And you'll get the traditional answers to that from the point of view, oh well, the brakes didn't work, or the guy wasn't trained, or he was tired, and all of that type of thing. So our first step on that has been the proximity sensing and warning systems, which are in AHM-913. And I'll take my hat off to the manufacturers there. They've developed that further and made the auto docking equipment such that the whole process of bringing the equipment right up to the aircraft has largely been automated, or there is equipment that does do that. And I think so what we're going to do is carry on promoting that to lessen the chances of aircraft ground damage. The other thing is to integrate systems so that we can optimize equipment on the airport, that we can optimize the usage of that equipment on the airport. So we would be promoting systems that integrate with other systems to enable the airport to run as an integrated whole rather as separate, disparate systems or entities. That requires a huge amount of collaboration, a huge degree of sharing, and those are hurdles that need to be overcome. But I think we would be definitely trying to promote that sort of direction. And then also the electric GSE, both in terms of usage of fuel, usage of energy, and the reduction of noise, small as it is, but that we can make the life on the ramp a more pleasant place for the people who work there. So safer, and in terms of the way the equipment that actually performs. So I mean, we are looking into, as is the rest of the industry, looking into autonomous GSE. And there's a huge amount of promise there, but there's a huge amount of obstacles that need to be overcome before people are entirely happy about having unmanned GSE on the ramp. But that's certainly something we're looking at. And part of it is the safety of the people on the ramp.
Exactly, and also airport support, because even when the design of airports, sometimes the turning cycle and the height of the curbs and everything are not conducive with the equipment. So that awareness and that involvement with practical people when it's necessary is so important, rather than just relying on consultants and technicians who haven't got that practical knowledge.
Yeah. Actually, Chris, to add on, I mean, there's one point I missed. Autonomous equipment is one of the things we are all looking into. I totally missed that point. Actually, we are working very close with some leading manufacturers on this. Especially when it comes to medical high loaders, conveyor belts, and it is going to be the next generation, and it's going to be very soon. We have already worked on prototypes. We have done some demonstrations, and this is something which is going to decrease the number of accidents on aircraft for sure. And it's as a safety part of it, it's going to be a big advantage for the GSE and as well as aircraft.
Yeah, all these positive changes are good, and the sooner they come, the better. Gents, listen, we're at the end. I'd like to thank you both for your time, your comments, your input, and also your thoughts, and also, thank you for what you're doing from the safety perspective and the structure and the organisation perspective. Good luck with everything, and I hope things go better than everybody's expecting over the next 4 to 6 months. It's going to be tough times for the whole industry, and we need to keep an eye on those that need help and those that are displaced, and try and keep them involved in the industry so they can come back sooner rather than later. Thank you both so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Cheers, lads.
Keep well.
Yeah, thank you, and the same to you.
Okay.